Well, you found me. This is the Vintage Woodshop. I'm Sandy, and as I like to say, welcome to my playpen. And here is the playpen for the last 26 years. It's been 9 months since I posted a video. Since then, my wife and I have downsized, and one of the things that got reduced in size was the new shop. Let's get on with today's video. This video is entitled 4 for 1 because I was given 2 pieces of wood, a chunk of padauk, a chunk of teak. Each was 12 inches wide, 24 inches long, 1.5 inches thick. I proceeded to cut each of them in half and glue them together back to back. As you're going to see towards the end, the grain that resulted from that lamination process, grain patterns just truly magnificent. So we're beginning this video with the coring process. Without further ado, let's carry on. So I have the piece of padauk chucked up here, and the video speed is going at warp speed right now, so the coring process looks like it doesn't take very long. This piece is about to pop out. Now I'm going to reduce the speed to normal so that you can watch how lengthy the process is. Here I have the piece of teak chucked up, and I'm in the process of changing the cutter. I wasn't satisfied with how well the cutting went on this last piece. So let's see if this freshly sharpened cutter is going to go through this wood like a hot knife through butter. And it is, but the harmonics are off. And I've noticed that I don't have the tool support set underneath the knife. So I'm going to take a moment to adjust that and get back to work. So now the knife has gotten about 1 inch or 1.5 inches out beyond the tool rest, so I'm readjusting it again, and the sound indicates that the knife is getting out beyond the tool rest. I need to adjust the camera and keep my fat head out of the picture. So we're ready to go again, and as you watch, listen for the sound change. The pitch is going to lower as the tip of that knife gets closer to the center. You can see how it will change as the handle becomes more parallel. It's getting closer to the point where the core is ready to be popped out. And of course, Mr. Impatience, I'm going to stop it here in a moment, give it a whack with a hammer. Lick didn't do it a lick good. And it's out. Didn't take much more. Going to take the core, put it on the bench, and the video is going back to warp speed. And here's where the twist. I've cored both pieces and I'm mounting them up on the drill press now because the two big pieces aren't going to be bowls. My client, good friend of mine, is an avid cigar smoker, and these two humongous pieces of wood are going to be ashtrays. So what I'm doing here is drilling out the slots in the ashtray on all four sides of both pieces that will eventually cradle my friend's cigars. That piece of Padauk sure is a pretty piece of wood. Everything's all drilled out. Now haul both blanks over to the bandsaw and knock the ears off of it and get it as round as possible. There's the chunk of teak, and we'll chuck them up on the lathe and start making shavings. So I had to make sure I was still pretty, got that all set up and ready to go, and then I need to step over to the grinder because this Ellsworth gouge has not been used in 9 months, and it took me a moment or two to put a good edge back on it. Now that I'm back at the lathe, you can see in the background the 8 tools that I keep closely at hand. I have 3 easy wood carbide scrapers back there, the 3/4 inch Ellsworth bowl gouge, a 1/2 inch Sorby bowl gouge, and 3 Hurricane scrapers that I have ground to be negative rake. That's what I do most of my work with, and they all do very well. Frequent starts and stops here, my friends. This is teak, and teak is loaded with silica. And silica, in case you didn't know it, is sand, and it is tearing up the edges on my tools. So I am stopping frequently to resharpen things. I resharpened both of the carbide inserts in 2 of my easy wood scrapers. Time to do a little sanding. As always, I'm sanding through the grits. I start out with 80 and work my way up through 400. I have 2 different drill motors, one with a hard backed sanding pad and the other with a soft sanding pad. The soft sanding pad I use for the 220, 320, and 400 grits. Okay, I'm about to wipe this thing down with denatured alcohol, something I've done for years and won't be able to do much longer because in California, you can no longer buy denatured alcohol. We do save the best for last. Here I am applying the Axe sanding abrasive, which just makes the grain pop. Gotta love this part. I'll follow that with the Axe polish, and then we'll see what's next. Time to reverse mount this thing. I've taken my Mega Jumbo Jaws, mounted it on the tailstock so that everything gets centered up when I release the blank from the chuck on the headstock. I'm doing this so that I can turn that glue block off the bottom of the ashtray. Figured you guys would get tired of looking at my back, so I changed the camera angle to give you a better view of how this glue block is getting turned off of the bottom of the blank. I've chucked up the core I took out of the teak blank, and I'm turning it down. I'm going to do both of the cores as little candy dishes to go along with the ashtrays. Here I'm flattening off the bottom of the Padauk bowl, chucked up a Forstner bit to cut a mortise, and my homemade little dovetailer that I ground from one of my really old original Craftsman lathe scrapers.
Watch the color.
20 seconds of normal speed here so that you can see the chatoyance and look at the amazing symmetry in the grain.
Yeah. That's pretty.
What happened off camera was getting the woodworm screw out of that piece of Padauk. It was stuck. Took a big clamp and a huge pair of channel lock pliers to get that thing reversed on the chuck. But here we're going at it, and just look how pretty that wood is. Time to change out the chucks, pull the smaller Talon off, and put on the big boy, the Stronghold, because I'm about to chuck up that big chunk of Padauk. This is a heavy piece of wood, so here in a moment I'm going to bring the tailstock up to lend some additional support while I do the initial shaping of this blank. Explaining some questions from the client who's about to poke his head in here in a moment to ask some other questions, and now I'm back at it. Going to check the depth here, and it was gratifying to verify that it was just as deep as I had calculated it when I originally cored the piece. And once again we get to our favorite part. The axe abrasive is going on here, and just watch the color come out. Take note of the symmetry in the bottom of that bowl, the grain. I couldn't have planned that better than it happened. That's just serendipity at work. The wood polished up, this Padauk was just a real pleasure to work with. Just got client approval there, so it's time to bring up the Mega Jumbo jaws and reverse this thing on the machine so I can turn the glue block off the bottom and finish this project off. Time to dismount the Mega Jaws and put a rag wheel on the lathe, get out the carnauba, and do a quick final wax job. So both of the ashtrays are finished. Time to finish off the little candy dishes. I mounted my homemade vacuum chuck on the lathe so I could chuck up the teak bowl here and clean up the bottom, do the finish work on it. When this one's done, I'll mount the Padauk bowl, and all four of the components of this particular project will be complete. The dimensions on those two little candy dishes that are the companions to the ashtray ended up just about 6 inches in diameter and about 2 inches tall, whereas the ashtrays themselves were right at 11 3/4 in diameter and a solid 3.5 inches deep. Well, you hung around this long, and since you have, I would appreciate it if you'd subscribe, do the notification thing, and share so someone else might subscribe as well. In the meantime, get out to the shop, strap on that tool apron, and dive into that piece of wood to find the beauty that Mother Nature left there for you. See you next time.